Well, hello there, Dr. Joe Pole from Atlanta. Welcome to Your Wellness for Life. Happy Saturday. Happy Super Bowl weekend. Hope you're having a good one. It's raining a little bit here in Atlanta, but the sun is slated to come out tomorrow afternoon just for game time. All right. Happy Saturday, Dr. Joe, to Your Wellness for Life. We discuss all 9 aspects and all 9 pillars of wellness. You can see them on the uh, table behind me. And wellness is a state of being. Good health is a state of body. And you can see how I have a nice little mnemonic called self-poise that wraps it all together. Poise is the graceful, dignified, self-confident, and elegant bearing in a person. So how nice is that? All right. So Super Bowl Sunday. We are cooking spaghetti tonight. So yum, yum, yum. Can't wait for that. All right. So happy Saturday. We're going to talk about today. Treating anxiety with medications without addressing the underlying problem is just a band-aid. I'm not a psychiatrist, I'm not a psychologist, but I do treat a lot of anxiety and depression and maybe even some bipolar disorder, things like that. Every physician probably that's in primary care does that to some degree. Anxiety is the most common mood disorder that we have. It afflicts up to about 30% of people in normal times. And now during this pandemic, it's probably much higher than that. And that's reflected in suicide rates and things like that. And everyone has gone through spells of anxiety. And most of you know what that feels like. You just feel uneasy, your heart's probably racing, maybe having some palpitations, maybe feeling sweaty. You just feel uncomfortable, whatever the situation is. And for most of us, we have coping skills. We kind of get over it. And some people have bona fide panic attacks, and they do need medications. So I'm not down on medications, but as a physician for over 35 years, I do know any problem that you have, it's always best to find the underlying problem. So I have some patients that have a bleeding problem, and all they do, they're in denial about what's causing the bleeding problem, and they just keep going to hematologists and get blood transfusions. Silly. Turn off the spigot, find out what the problem is, stop the bleeding, and then you won't need blood transfusion anymore. So the blood transfusion is kind of like medications for anxiety. You're just putting a band-aid on the problem. You're not addressing the problem. You got to address the root cause of the problem. And most anxiety and depression problems are situational in nature, meaning a situation causes you to be anxious, causes you to be depressed. It could be a relationship kind of thing with a child or your spouse or your parents or your coworker, or more often than not, it's probably currently a financial problem. And so I was going to go over today's kind of jobs report was in the paper today. It was very interesting. The title of the article, 3 Key Takeaways from January's Jobs Report. And what am I getting at is that a lot of us are having financial issues, and that's driving our mood disorders, especially anxiety. You're showing up at doctor's offices or urgent care, emergency rooms, and they're dispensing medications and saying, okay, now you work on the underlying problem. But more often than not, that underlying problem isn't even discussed. It's not even uncovered. So here we go. 3 takeaways from January's job report. The Labor Department reported Friday that employers added a meager 49,000 jobs in January after having slashed 227,000 in December. And that did nothing to brighten the picture. The unemployment rate is still about 6.3%, which is its lowest level since March, from 6.7% in December. All right, all told, the U.S. has 9.9 million fewer jobs than it did in February last year, just before the coronavirus erupted across the country. So there are 3 takeaways, and I like this. Appearances are deceiving. So number 1, the job market January performance, with hiring perking up after having sunk in December, may look good, but it isn't, according to Gregory Dacko and Lydia Bussour of Oxford Economics. The Labor Department, they said, revised down November and December payrolls, they always do that, by sizable combined 159,000, revealing that employers were even more reluctant to hire than we knew. Oh, that's what predictions are. They're just that, predictions. They're guesstimates. And then when the data really comes out, you start making adjustments. Anyone listening to the adjustments? Probably not. Quirks in the way the government uses seasonal adjustments to calculate job growth may also have made the January numbers look better than they actually were. And the jobless rate is falling in part because so many Americans have stopped looking for work and are therefore no longer counted as unemployed. Boy, will that drive anxiety. Quote unquote, adjusting for the people that have dropped out of the labor force by choice or obligation, the unemployment rate is above 9%. There you go. All right, takeaway number 2, caution among private companies. Private employers added an anemic 6,000 jobs in January, accounting for a mere 12% of last month's gain. Instead, the bulk of hiring came from state and local governments, which added 67,000 jobs, in part because schools reopened with some in-person learning in parts of the country. By contrast, the federal government shed 24,000 positions. Here comes the bad news. Leisure and hospitality companies, including restaurants, hotels, and bars, lost 61,000 jobs last month. They now employ 3.9 million fewer people than they did in February 2020. Retailers, in the meantime, lost 38,000 jobs. Healthcare companies cut 30,000 jobs, and many patients canceled non-essential visits to doctors and dentists. During the heyday of the pandemic last year, for about 2-3 months, we stopped seeing routine appointments. A lot of people were afraid to even come. We were kind of retooling with wearing masks and sanitation things and putting up plexiglass barriers and things like that. And so we were done most of the days by noon, and then we obviously had to kind of get back to work. So one take-home message here is, let's get back to work. Maybe that'll fix some of the anxiety problem. $600 won't go very far. $1,400 won't go very far. $2,000 won't go very far. It might pay for your car payment for 4 months. It might pay your mortgage payment for a month. It might pay your rental expense for 2 months. Then you got to eat. So that's great for the economy, and it may boost the economy transiently. For any one family, ain't gonna do squat. All right, number 3, permanent losses pile up. Most of the job gains since last spring have come from companies recalling workers they had furloughed after the virus hit, and so it was in January. The number of Americans on temporary layoff dropped by 293,000 to 2.7 million. At the same time, the ranks of the permanent laid off climbed by 133,000 to 3.5 million. They have now outnumbered the temporary jobless each month since September. In January, more than 4 million Americans were unemployed for at least 6 months, the highest level since 2013. They accounted for nearly 40% of the unemployed. All right, 3 takeaways from the January jobs report. Appearances are deceiving. They've adjusted the numbers. They're worse than they were initially reported. Caution among private companies, and permanent job losses pile up. If the financial strains in your family are driving your anxiety, and you're in a doctor's office, they're dispensing medications for you, and you're having panic attacks and things like that, and you can't function, obviously you need some medication. But until you address the underlying problem, it's just a Band-Aid. So if you need help along those lines, there are lots of options. Send me a message, send me a comment. We can address the underlying problem and get you off of your anxiety medications. Dr. Joe from Atlanta. Welcome to Your Wellness for Life. Have a wonderful Saturday and have a great Super Bowl Sunday. I'll give you a more happy topic tomorrow. Maybe we'll talk about tulips or something. Hey, catch you tomorrow. God bless, Dr. Joe.